need a ringtone or We're all set? Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the Select Board meeting of September 19th, 2023. I call the meeting to order. This meeting of the Hopkinton Select Board is being held both in person and remotely using the video conference platform Zoom. All members participating in the meeting are present in the meeting room. The public has the option of attending in person here at Town Hall or via Zoom using the link posted in this meeting's agenda. This meeting is being recorded. So I will entertain a motion to move into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Purpose 3, to consider strategy with respect to negotiations with the fire union. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Purpose 6, to consider the purchase, lease, sale, or value of real estate in relation to properties in the vicinity of Town Hall and South Street and parcels owned by Umina off of Chestnut Street, because an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the board. Approval of executive session minutes, to allow Norman Camalo and Elaine Lazarus to participate in the executive session and to convene back at open session at the conclusion of the executive session.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor by roll call vote. So I'll start this way. Shahidul?
Aye.
Irfan Aswali, yes.
Amy?
Amy Witherbus, yes.
Mary Jo?
Joe Freely, yes.
Muriel Kramer, yes. So we will be back at 6:30 in open session. So I call the meeting to order in open session, and the first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. So the first order of business is always a public forum. Please note that each person will have up to 2 minutes to speak at public forum, and please start by stating your name and address. Is there anyone present in the meeting room who would like to speak at public forum? Please come forward.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Dorothy Ferriter Wallace, 57 Pinecrest Village, Hopkinton. This comments in regards to a recent letter that was sent to the BAA. On Tuesday, September 12th, I received an email from the town manager's office regarding a letter dated September 5th that was being sent to the BAA from the town. I reached out to our committee liaison, Mary Jo Lafreniere, inquiring about the letter and to clarify when exactly the letter to the BAA was to be sent. I was not previously informed about the letter, had no input to its contents, nor did the letter even mention Marathon Committee or its affiliation with the Marathon or the BAA. I was advised that the town manager was making some changes and the letter was to be sent to the BAA afterwards. The Marathon Committee has coordinated all aspects of the start of the Boston Marathon for the past 44 years. The Marathon Committee is comprised of volunteers and department representatives from police, fire, DPW, schools, parks and recs, who all work together, finalizing and executing plans with the BAA for the safe and exciting marathon. The scope of the Marathon Committee charge in Section E directs that all correspondence, arrangements, and special requests of any nature that relate to the Boston Marathon pertaining to Hopkinton should be addressed first by the Hopkinton Marathon Committee. My request: to avoid confusion and misguided expectations, I am here tonight to ask for the Select Board's continued support of the Marathon Committee in directing all correspondence, special requests, and any marathon planning or logistical matters related to Hopkinton to be addressed first by our committee. Thank you for your time and understanding.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else? Yeah, please come forward.
Good evening. My name is Nick Walker. I'm a resident, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Hopkinton Police Union tonight. First and foremost, since December of 2020...
Where do you live, sir? Your address?
18 Walcott.
Thank you.
First and foremost, since December of 2020, the Hopkinton Police Department has lost 17 members. Only one of those officers retired. 14 of them are active law enforcement officers in other agencies to this day. They chose to leave this agency to go to different departments. This is what led to our contract being more competitive, but we are still struggling to recruit due to a lack of support from town management. Second, at tonight's meeting, the chief had planned to bring forward a new officer to join our department who graduated from the academy this past Friday. After seeing the stress our department is under, this officer chose to withdraw from the hiring process and has already been hired by another local agency. To the residents of Hopkinton, please listen to us. The Hopkinton Police Department is struggling right now. We have 9 vacancies in a 29-officer department. We cannot fill these positions under these conditions. Our officers are working short-staffed and often unsupervised. We are telling you that there are fewer officers protecting you and your family than there should be on every shift, and town management is making it harder than ever to recruit. Next, in regards to the last promotional process, the process is comprehensive and involved human resources at every step. It is our belief that the Select Board has violated the town charter by interfering with the day-to-day operations of this department. While we welcome transparency and oversight, it should be done in conjunction with the police department and the chief of police. The town should be working with us, not against us. Lastly, I want to clarify inaccurate statements made by a Select Board member in a recent Hopkinton Independent article. A member stated that a vote to appoint a police officer last year was 3-2. This is incorrect. The vote was 3-0, with 2 members who chose to abstain from voting. This issue in itself should be concerning to the town because the issue at hand was related to one of our members' personal religious beliefs. We have still not received an official response from the Board of Selectmen regarding our letter. We are willing to meet and would appreciate any kind of acknowledgement for our concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody on Zoom? Do we have any?
No hands raised.
Great. Okay. All right. So I am pleased to be able to announce that we have a signed memorandum of agreement with the fire union for the period of July 1st, 2021 to June 30th of 2024. So appreciation to all involved for excellent effort, and it is a very favorable contract for our fire union. So
I think it's 22 to 25, is it?
25.
20 to 25.
I apologize, July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2024. Okay, thank you.
25.
25?
Yes.
Right. Okay. All right. Our next order of business is the consent agenda. We will consider the following consent agenda items: minutes of the Select Board meeting September 5th, 2023, accepting the gifts of $1,000 from Karen Bonazzoli in honor of her father, Alfred Bonazzoli, who had lived at 7 Cole Drive, used to benefit the fire department. To accept the resignation of Kevin Baxter from the Board of Appeals, and to endorse the Garden of Hope from the 24th of September to the 31st of October on the Town Common as part of the Recovery Day being organized by the Hopkinton Youth and Family Services. The Garden of Hope is a dedicated space on the Common to recognize and commemorate persons in recovery, struggling with recovery, or who have lost loved ones to substance use disorder, and people may place a flag, white, yellow, or purple, on the ground to honor those connected with substance use disorder. Would anybody like to pull any of the items out of the consent agenda?
I just had a question about the Garden of Hope.
I would kind of like to pull the Garden of Hope out, so. All right, so I will accept a motion on the other 3 items.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Much appreciation to the Bonazzoli family for their gift to the fire state department, and also appreciation to Kevin Baxter, who's leaving the Board of Appeals. Okay, so the Garden of Hope. Did you have a question?
Since we've not done this before, this is a temporary memorial, then so it might be an annual thing. Is that correct?
In fact, if I may, the town has done this before.
Oh, they have, okay.
The decision to bring it to the Select Board is purely for us to announce or make the announcement to the community. We're not looking for any specific approval, but rather get your endorsement that this is an event that is significant and meaningful for the community.
And we have, who do we have here?
Colleen Souza. I'm Cassandra Bigness.
Hi, welcome. And did you want to just share a little bit about the
Sure. So this is an event that's on Sunday, being held on Sunday on the Common from 1 to 4 o'clock, and we invite all Hopkinton residents, family, all ages to attend. And the point of it is it's a celebration of recovery. We did it once 4 years ago. And so then sort of now, post-COVID, we're having it again. And it's to help really lower the stigma around substance misuse. And we want to be able to spread the message of prevention. Cassandra has been working really hard on this through the DFC. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit.
So we also just want to celebrate overall wellness and health in the community. We are partnering with the Farmers Market and the Board of Public Health to bring this to the community. There are many different resources that we'll have available there, a lot of speakers. The Farmers Market has their own band who will be playing, and it's just to celebrate those who are in recovery, encourage those who are thinking about recovery, that let them know that there are resources in our community, that they're not alone.
I so appreciate this, and one of the reasons why I wanted to call it out was that I do a lot of work in my line of work with folks experiencing substance use disorder, and one of the messages we really want to share all the time, it's about stigma abatement too. It's about breaking down what we think we know about substance use disorder, and really sharing a message of hope that while this is a chronic remitting disease, it's treatable. We have the treatments. They're very successful. This is not new science. And that communities everywhere need to be encouraged to sort of lean in with resources and contemplate different ways of supporting, even thinking about in this community, if we had some sort of treatment facility that wanted to come in, how would that be received? Or recovery home that wanted to come in, how would that be received? And I hope that this is an opportunity to sort of plant the seed, that all of these efforts together can be incredibly successful. And I also want to encourage people. I think that probably very few of us are untouched in our families or friendship circles from substance use disorder, and help is available and treatment is successful. So I really appreciate that you're doing this.
Great.
Thank you.
I just want to ask one thing. So part of it, we're having this flag garden, or Garden of Hope, that we did previously, and we have different color flags as you had read out. So we wanted to ask if it was okay to leave that up for 2 weeks following the event.
Yeah, I thought that I had seen that it was an extended event. So yeah, I'm sure we support that.
We just invite anybody in the community. If you can't make it on that day, we'll have flags here at Town Hall afterwards, and you can come get a flag and put one up after that too.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I'll entertain a motion to endorse that endeavor.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Great, thank you. Okay, now we have means-tested senior citizen property tax exemption for FY 2024. Mr. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. John Neese, Assessor. Renee Chen, Deputy Assessor. There is an information sheet in your packet. I'm going to make a brief presentation. Renee monitors the program for the assessing department, so she'll answer any questions you might have, and then we will need you to make a motion. So this is the means-tested senior tax exemption for fiscal year 2024. The information sheet says that we had received 21 applications. We actually have 22. The Board of Assessors at this point has approved 14 of those applications and has the other applications to still review. Each year, it is your responsibility to set the percentage amount of the exemption, anywhere from 50% to 200% of the circuit breaker income tax credit amount, which was $1,200. In each of the few years that we have had this program to benefit some of our residents, you have selected the 200% number. I'm not suggesting that you do that again. That is entirely your decision. But at that percentage amount and the number of applications we have, you're looking at a residential tax rate impact of approximately 1 to 2 cents. So that's it for me, and any questions you might have, you may direct to us.
Great, thank you so much. Do we have any questions?
The Chair, the only question I have is, what was the number last year? It sounds smaller than that, doesn't it?
2,340.
Oh, so last year we had 19 qualified applicants, and the program cost to the town was $38,652. So we're projecting now that we're within $100 of that at the maximum once we review all of the applications.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I just want to make a comment that I think this is a relatively big impact for folks that really need it, and a small impact for those of us who are lucky enough to be able to support it. So we very much appreciate that this comes forward.
Madam Chair, I move that the Select Board adopt the means-tested senior tax exemption at 200% of the calendar year
Second that.
for 2022 circuit breaker income tax
2020
credit for fiscal year 2024.
Second that.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now I'd like to invite members of the school committee and the appropriations committee to come forward for the 2025 budget calendar and budget message joint meeting.
Need some more chairs?
I think we should be okay. I hope we're okay. Those are Amy's cookies. You ought to avail yourself of them.
They're really good.
Do we have enough seats? So Holly is a...
She's on Zoom.
Okay. All right. So do you need to call your meetings to order, or you're already...
Yes, I would like to call the school committee to order.
Okay.
Thank you.
And the appropriation committee?
We call the meeting in order at 7:02.
Great. All right. Mr. Kamalo, take us away.
Thank you. I want to start off by warmly welcoming the school committee as well as the appropriations committee to this joint meeting. And thinking about the journey that we have all gone through over the years, and also in speaking with the chair of the select board, I thought that it might be helpful for us to break this discussion into two components. The first component will focus specifically on the budget calendar. I think we've been at this for many years, where we've talked about what's the best way to create a practical, effective, and workable schedule. We've tried. We've learned lessons, and I thought it might be helpful for us to just begin the conversation by talking about the calendar. And then the second phase will then focus on what I call identifying the foundations of a budget message. In the past, the town manager will show up at this meeting with a draft budget message. And what we have heard over the years, I think we've been listening carefully, is that it may be helpful for us to listen, receive input, have a joint conversation, and then formulate the budget message. Therefore, this gathering today is intended to do exactly that.
Do you want to walk us through the budget calendar?
Yes. Okay. We did share a draft budget calendar that I think I should really thank Elaine. She coordinated that process. We did receive the input from the superintendent's office, And so the idea is that today we gain consensus and agreement on the calendar. And as I said, also commence a discussion on the foundations of the budget message. The idea is beginning in October, the CFO then distributes the budget materials. Okay? And then the deadline for submitting CPC applications, we need to state this, is October 12th. And then November 1, the municipal services budgets are due to the town manager. November 14th, the select board will begin the process of discussing its potential town meeting articles. And the idea here being, we want to get a good picture with regard to the scale and scope of the capital articles before we finalize a draft budget. So the earlier the town boards begin conversations on those capital articles, the better for everybody else. And then November 14th, the idea is to have the town manager complete the review of the capital improvement plan. I know our school colleagues have been working on your capital improvement plan, recently updated it. We'll be doing the same on the town side. And hopefully come November 14th, we'll have an idea as to what might be moving forward in terms of capital articles in the coming year. Select board on November 14th, we're hoping will commence its first budget listening session. We've tried this concept in the last 2 years. We learned some lessons last year that it's important we really find a way to take the budget discussions to the community. We've tried ways of bringing people to meetings. We have not been successful. We have not been effective. Very few people have participated. So I'm thinking that through these conversations, we will find additional ways that will work effectively in getting the town residents to participate early and often in the budget process. And then a concept, we have not identified the date yet. Concept that we have tried, I think in the last 2 years, is to allow the select board, the school committee, and the appropriations committee to have a preliminary preview of the budget coming from our school colleagues. I'm hoping that tonight we may agree on that date. The idea here is to allow the 3 town boards to hear directly from the superintendent before she finalizes her budget submission to the school committee. So it's an open date yet to be decided on. We're targeting December 19th as the date when the town manager completes the municipal review of the review of the municipal services budgets, with also the school superintendent then presenting the school department budget to the school committee December 21st. Okay? We also did receive input from the school superintendent that January 11th may work for the school committee public hearing, board discussion with the select board and appropriations committee attending, and then the school committee votes on the FY25 budget January 18th, 2024. Tentatively, we are hoping that the town manager may submit a consolidated budget to the select board January 23rd. However, I think as I've said in past years, based on this schedule, the town manager only has 5 days to to put together the comprehensive budget following the school committee approval of the budget, of the school department budget on January 18th. I'm encouraging this group to look at a different date that will allow us enough time to do that work. It's important that we also point out that the annual town meeting warrant, based on the schedule we are looking at, will close on February 6th. Here's the challenge. Our town warrant process is open. And what we have seen in past years is that some capital articles show up way past our deadlines that we've established for the budget process. Again, I would like to encourage all town departments to formalize and submit their town articles and discuss them with the respective boards by the end of the calendar year. Yes, the town meeting warrant will be open until February 6th, but we shouldn't use that as the process to then circumvent the budget calendar. February 6th, the Select Board will also conduct a budget and capital hearing that will allow town departments to come and present their operating budget ideas as well as capital articles for discussion with the Select Board. And then the next key deadline is March, before then, the town manager has to submit the budget to the Select Board. This will happen January 23rd, and then following that, the Select Board will formalize the budget, adopt the budget, and forward it to the Appropriations Committee March 19th. And then April 15th, the Appropriations Committee will hold a public hearing and vote on the budget and deliver the required report for town meeting consideration by April 22nd, which is at least 14 days before the annual town meeting. So in summary, that's the schedule that we are proposing. I've identified a few pinch points that I'm hoping this discussion may inform some final decisions on. And I'll take any questions.
My first question is just logistically. We're due to deliver a budget message before October 1st. So what we had talked about is that we would then need, if we don't do it tonight after the discussion, we'd need an additional meeting.
Correct, yes. Up to the board to decide that. I also realized after our conversation that the next Select Board meeting is actually October 3rd.
It is.
And that might work. Because quite frankly, the charter requires that the calendar be set by October 1st. It does not require the budget message to be set by that date.
So if we don't set the message tonight, I would prefer to do it on the 3rd versus having an additional meeting, but I don't know how other people are feeling about that. Okay, so I don't have any questions about the calendar. Does anybody have any questions about the calendar as outlined or the process? Okay.
I have one.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think this makes sense. Thank you for putting it together overall. From the previous couple of years budget process and some of the learning based on some of the challenges we have faced, I was wondering if we should specifically put some Select Board hearing slots for school. The reason being, school being the biggest part of the budget, historically we have been gone back and forth, and that constrains the overall timeline. So if we can plan that part ahead of time, thinking that after the final school budget is passed or presented, we at least have 2 or 3 sessions slotted for the
So
discussion.
do you mean just agenda spots?
Just agenda spots in these
Our
timelines.
future calendars?
Our future calendars.
Yeah.
Like here, we have a few that generic mentions about select board reviews.
Yeah.
So that'll keep us all kind of aligned that by this time we do the first review, and if there's some adjustment that happens, then we get the second and third, just to keep things on the radar a little more specifically.
I think it is on our calendar to attend the school committee meeting where they do the budget too, right? It's part of the calendar that we're going to all go attend the school committee budget hearing, right? Yeah.
Yes, it is, but
You're talking about just making sure we have opportunities on the agenda once all the budgets come together to have ongoing conversations, just to make sure we have that opportunity?
that's correct.
Yeah.
What, Amy, you're referring to is us being on this kind of in sync of what's happening, what's discussed, and what's the progress is. But then we don't deliberate until towards the end of the review. What that does is sometimes then it's not a lot of time to go back and forth, which has happened at least the last fiscal year, to adjust on both sides, and it creates, I would say, some type of time stress or readiness stress. So even after all of these, when our deliberation begins or our hearings begin, can we specifically put some adjustment times with specific school hearing and revision milestones on the calendar, if that makes sense. So if I look at this, I think the capital hearing starts after the school committee votes, right? January 18. And then between January 18 to March 19, we do several hearings. So during these times, can we allocate 2 milestone or 3 milestone just for school hearings? That's probably the change I'm looking
Through the
for.
chair, asking between January 18 and when?
And March 19.
So just to make sure that we have dedicated time on the space to also talk about the school committee budget.
Correct. Yeah.
I don't have any objection to that. I don't think we necessarily have to formalize it. I don't know how anybody else feels, but I think one of the things that I think of in terms of building out the budget is what a big player the school is. And last year we had some miscommunications unintentionally. So I appreciate that idea, and I have no opposition to it, but I don't know that we have to formalize it now, but to stay open to inviting the school committee during that period of time, I think makes a lot of sense.
I was thinking if we have the milestone level plan now, it kind of prepares everyone to a few dates instead of open conversation and ongoing scheduling. Just my thought.
Yep,
Understood.
yep. Anybody else?
Just have a little bit of concern that the school committee is responsible for their budget, and that's their role, and I wouldn't want to have double hearings over all the hearings they're having. But discussions, I guess, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Obviously, the school is a big part of the budget.
Yeah, I think that you're right. It's not necessarily double hearings, but ongoing opportunities for conversation.
Correct.
In that time formalized.
Correct. Yeah, it's more ongoing conversation. And also, even if we plan, say, 2 or 3 slots, we may not need to use them if we all kind of think we are comfortable after the first one. Right?
So let me toss it across the table.
Excellent. So a couple of thoughts. I love the idea of planning out so that we can make sure our calendars are in alignment. If we don't happen to meet the meetings, we don't. In terms of our process, we have presentations from our departments up through early December before we really have a number. What has been helpful in the past, I know, is if there could be a member of the select board at our school committee to see the presentations and to perhaps report back to you as a committee, unless you all want to watch our meetings, because they are fun.
They are such fun.
They are. They are. And a member of the Appropriations Committee as well, and we do invite the Select Board liaison to the school committee to ask questions in the moment, also the appropriations person to ask questions of the presentations, the specific within the department. So, you know, the different schools, the different, you know, everything from transportation to maintenance and all the things in between that make up our school budget. But that helps us to hear things that the Select Board might be thinking about and bring that back and forth. Just as an idea. The other piece I think that's important to get moving is our budget advisory, our working group, because I think that gives us, I think we did every other week last year. Is that accurate? To have those and then to bring things back to each of the three boards to really hopefully make it a smoother process at the end this year than we did last year.
Yep.
And when are those slated to begin, or?
As soon as possible. I believe as early as October, we could get them going. If I may, at least from my vantage point, it's important to recognize, I think, the different phases of the budget process. There is great value in representatives of the Select Board and the Appropriations Committee participating in the budget development process for the school department. Over the years, the challenge comes when we move to the next phase of the budget process, how we fund the budget. At that point, the questions that come up are different from the questions that come up when the budget is being developed. That's when I think, again, from my vantage point, and I say this respectfully, that's where the miscommunication comes up.
How can we make that better?
Yeah.
Before we get to that, because I agree with you. There seems to be a little bit of a divide where we're working along, and it feels like we're asking questions about, you know, what brand of markers are we buying? That actually did come up one year.
I don't want to be involved in that conversation.
But you know, when we're talking about the day-to-day, the budget stuff that we're doing in our development of our budget, and then we cross into January and things in a couple of years, not have gone a little bit south. In ways that,
I was looking for the right way to say it.
in ways that were challenging, I think, for all of us.
Yes,
at the table.
yes.
All of us wanting to serve both, you know, our schools and our students and the residents of the town, and to hold that fiduciary responsibility that we all have.
Right, yeah.
So I'm open to ideas. I do like the idea of the December meeting to have a preview of with the three boards. I think that getting that before we get into our public hearings might be a helpful thing. You might have more information then, because it's November, right? You're taking the other departments' budgets in. If there's more information for us, that would be great. I can try to make myself more available to come here and to answer questions along the way.
I think
Board as well.
I think you're spot on, and a lot of good ideas coming out. Just to hit a little bit of the challenge that we are trying to face and how we can do a little bit better is, one thing is we were engaged in some of the advisory meetings. I was there, and some of the other school committee meetings. But my observation is that actual discussion doesn't happen unless all 5 Select Board members are together hearing it. Even though, you know, we bring it back and we bring back some of the conversations, for 2 reasons. One, I think it's not as extensive time to discuss and as detailed discussion that may be needed. There's no other opportunity to do that. And second is, as Norman was saying, we don't see the full picture of revenue and expenses until we see it all together, and that's where the more detailed and constructive or sometimes challenging discussions begin. So my intent of that thought was, how can we, as we are doing the hearings and building the picture together, how can we put schools, slots in between, so time to time we can do a little bit of checking the pulse type of conversation.
I love that idea. I think it offers both more transparency for people at home when they see more conversations between us, and hopefully will allow us the opportunity to arrive in the new year in a better place than we did last year. I also did want to highlight one other piece, if I can go back a little bit, to the long-term capital plans. I know that we've had various discussions. I think people are widely aware of the upcoming special town meeting regarding the Elmwood School project. And the school committee did go back to look at our long-term, or 5-year capital plan. Mrs. Rotherman presented some great options of things that we would be able to appreciate, projects that might not need to be done in that time. And we actually, from where we were a year ago in talking about that, we're about $120 million less in our 5-year capital plan than we were a year ago. And that's, really our commitment to working with the town and the affordability. But if we're able to move forward with the Elmwood project, it offers opportunities for savings in other areas.
Great to hear.
For those who weren't watching our meeting, I did want to share that. Questions about the calendar?
I have a question about the process with budget advisory. Just, I think those meetings are very helpful because appropriations is there as well. And I just would hope that the boards could have an alternate. If the member who's designated can't make it, I could be your alternate. So that there's always someone from each of the 3 boards at those meetings, because that is a place to bring forward committee concerns and questions.
Sure.
That's a great point.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're in charge. I don't.
Oh, so I think Muriel is.
You're in charge now.
Stepped out. Yeah. Thank you. So with that, anything from the appropriations on this calendar or any other additional comments?
Dr. Kavanaugh also has a presentation on the budget process as well. Oh, yes, for the December meeting. Yep. Mm-hmm. Let's do that. Let's look at our calendars. So I think working backwards from January, I think the January dates are good to make because our hearing is not the first week back in January. If we have had our departmental budgets by about December 7th, concluding those. In December, typically we meet every Thursday, almost every Thursday. So what, in terms of the select board calendar, which weeks do you guys meet in December?
In December, we meet every other week.
First and third Tuesday.
The 5th and the 19th.
Yeah, the 5th and the 19th.
So and I don't know about appropriations where you guys will be in December in terms of what's good for you guys night-wise. Your preference between?
I think we haven't discussed it, but just any night, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is fine.
I think the week of the 5th is too soon. I don't think we'll be ready for that at that point.
We still have budget presentations on the 7th.
Right, so for us, either at our meeting on the 21st or a different date that week.
So we have a meeting on the 19th.
19th.
Or it seems like we could probably go to theirs.
Would 19 work, you said? Saturday?
Well, they already have.
I would prefer the 21st, but I could make the...
I'm just thinking, we have a slated to present the consolidated budget on the 21st, right?
Yes.
So if we have input from the committees on the 19th.
Okay. It feels like a very short window.
Do you want to look to the week before? Would it be helpful for you to go a week earlier?
I think if we were looking at a Tuesday, the 12th of December would be better in terms of making a final budget presentation to you on the 21st of December.
So since we'll probably end up meeting on the 14th, and you're not already meeting on the 12th.
Perfect.
Would you guys be amenable to meeting on the 14th to do that?
Well, I thought we said we're meeting on the 5th and the 19th, right?
5th and 19th.
The 5th and the 19th, but the 19th is going to be late for Dr. Kavanaugh to be able to make a turnaround.
And 5th is too early?
And the 5th is too early, so we want to look at the week in between those 2 weeks.
Okay.
So I'm available the 12th or the 14th.
Yeah, I can be too.
I don't know.
Yeah, I can make it.
I don't know about everyone else.
I mean, right now, December's wide open for me. So
Yeah.
as we plan things, you know, we can block it off so it doesn't get filled.
Either the
Should we fill it?
December 14th or Thursday?
December 14th. Listen.
Or the 12th, yeah. You know what I mean? We always add that.
Between 12 and 14, do you have any preference?
I would prefer the 14th because we always end up adding a meeting for the school committee that night, just as we're marching towards our public hearing.
Sure.
So the 14th?
The 14th?
If that's agreeable to.
Instead of shoving up your rail too.
Works for me.
Works for me.
Okay.
We can pencil it in for now.
So, if I may, in response to the comment from Member Manal, is there any other meeting that we can schedule between the 14th and the 18th of January? Correct, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's a joint meeting as well, right?
Public hearing.
Last year it was, we did have both the appropriations and the select board for a public hearing.
Yeah, it's listed that way too.
So at least that will create 3 meetings that I believe you had asked for.
Do you want to do an additional meeting after the 11th, after our public hearing, even though we'll all be together for that? Or do you think it's okay to tack that on after the public hearing in the same night? I'm open to either. I just want to make sure I have it written down right.
I was thinking that the public hearing on January 11th be the second meeting, and therefore we're now looking for the third meeting. Do we want that third meeting before January 11th or after January 11th?
The school committee will hear the budget again, so December 21st, January 4th, January 11th for a public hearing, January 18th for school committee vote. So January 4th is another repeat budget presentation. So the 21st, January 4th happen before the public hearing.
Yes. Would the board be amenable to January 4th? Similarly with the Appropriations Committee?
I would be. The only other thing I'm thinking, and of course, pending everyone else's response, only other thing I'm thinking is, remember the other objective is to have the budget matured enough to have a little bit broader perspective. If we fall short somewhere, we try to make it up from somewhere. Do you think we'll be there by January 4th?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Then I think that is a good day.
So those are the 3 dates: December 14th, January 4th, and then January 11th for the public hearing.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you, everybody, for your patience. I actually had an emergency. No, it's okay. It's fine. So that would be us meeting with the school committee, just making sure that we understand your meetings that are already scheduled.
Yes.
Okay.
And this Appropriations Committee soon.
And the Appropriations Committee. Yeah, I appreciate that. And then, can I ask a question that I had before I left? Do you have the schedule of the conversations you were talking about in terms of your presentations from your departments? Is that set and predictable? Mm-hmm. Okay, I would love to you don't have to go through it now, but if you could send it to me, that would be super helpful.
And that, then we can have that sent to you, but it also should go up on our website at some point soon, just as part of, for people at home that would like to see it as well.
Yeah, and honestly, if it's up on the website, you could just shoot me the email and...
I can shoot you, because it will then have presentations.
Yeah, perfect. That's perfect. I don't need anything special. I just need to know what to expect in terms of when it makes sense to make sure that I'm getting to those meetings. And I had one more question, and it's escaping me. So do other people have questions, or are we pretty set on that piece?
And do we agree we'll do the budget message October 3rd? And we just have to add that to the calendar. Technically, the day we set the message has to be in the calendar.
October 3rd.
It has to be on this calendar? Is that what you're saying to me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine. I wrote it in here, yeah. I just wanted to make sure I knew what you were asking. Okay. Yeah, that makes better sense to me than otherwise. And just to clarify, what I just heard as I was coming back in is those conversations on January 4th and January 11th, the budget will be mature enough for us to be engaging with the sort of the bigger question of how we fund the budget, those implications, or is that after that?
The answer is, at that point, we will have some information on the expenditure levels as well as the budget sources.
The budget sources,
yes.
Yeah.
My understanding of the dates that we agreed to, December 14th.
Mm-hmm.
What that does is it gives everybody the opportunity to hear from the school superintendent before she finalizes the school department budget and presents it to the school committee. And then January 4th allows the school committee, the appropriations committee, and the select board to hear from the school superintendent on the school department budget ahead of the public hearing. And then the January 11th date allows the three committees to hear about the school budget relative to the information we may have on the budget sources ahead of the school committee voting on the budget. Again, one date tied to before the school superintendent finalizes the budget, the next date tied to the public hearing, and then the next date tied to the school committee voting on the budget.
Okay.
So we added 3.
Yep. Does that, I'm seeing a lot of nodding heads. Does that works? And that doesn't add anything to the Appropriations Committee? You're already on those, going to those meetings?
Yes, we've attended all those meetings.
Okay, all right.
But if we get everybody from all the different committees and boards going, it's more productive. So I think
Great.
that can be improved this year.
Great. Okay, the next piece, I know we're over time. The next piece of the conversation, Mr. Khumalo?
Has to do with the foundations of the budget message. I believe the school superintendent, and he has a presentation to share with the meeting.
Yes, I do. Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to make this presentation tonight. Mrs. Rothermick and I wanted to share with you just some preliminary information and data that we have that will inform our budget process. In full disclosure, right now, we haven't even met with any of our building principals or our directors yet. That will begin next week. And the information that they bring to us obviously informs their asks and the things that we ultimately bring to the community. But there are some things that we already know, and we wanted to share that data with you because it may stimulate some of your thinking as you're preparing a budget message and looking at your sources of revenue. So I don't know if we can get that presentation on the screen.
It's up there.
Oh, is it up there? Oh, it's behind me, okay, thank you. So next slide, we like to show you the historical increases that we've had in the Hopkinton Public Schools since FY20. And we are very grateful to the community for funding our school budget at these percentages. So in FY20, we were at 6.63, FY21, 6.6, FY22, 5.4, FY23, 2.88, and FY24, 7.9%. And then we also need to take a look at the enrollment projections in our schools. So you know from past presentations that we've had a demographer who has done some very good work for us. His name is Dr. Arthur Wagman. And when we take a look at these enrollment projections on slide 4,
Gotcha.
Are we there? On slide 4, if you take a look at the 23-24 school year, which is the one we've just entered into, the projection was that we would be at 4,186 students by the close of this school year. Currently, we are at 4,188 students, so we are 2 students above the end-of-year projection. And that probably sounds to you like, oh my goodness, why is it that we are always seeming to be lagging? But this might be some of the best tracking we've actually had going. So when we create this budget, we'll be building a budget based on 4,290 students, which is the projection for end of year in FY25.
Next slide.
So as you look some more at enrollment, you can see how this went historically. And so that second column, the one titled Projected Budgeted Enrollment, those were the budgets on which, the enrollments on which we were building budgets. So if you look, for example, at 2018-19, we built a budget for 3,557 students, and by the end of that school year, we had 3,741 students. That last column, excepting the year of the pandemic, has always come out higher than what the projected enrollment was, and I think that that's important to note. So again, we'll be building our FY25 budget for 4,290 students.
Next. Yeah, thank you.
So as you're looking at our current enrollment and the projected enrollment, there's a 112 student difference. And each year when I'm here and present the budget, what I try to do is sort of take that number and divide it into increments of 20. Because we roughly work with the figure that for every 20 students, we need 1.4 teachers. So if we had 6 groups of 20 and we multiplied that times the 1.4 teachers, we're really talking about 8.4 FTE teachers. And if you imagine that we're hiring them at $75,000 each, that's about a $630,000 ask. That's just based in enrollment. So we already have some things we've bought, so to speak, in quotation marks, during this year. At our last school committee meeting, we did approve a 0.5 FTE special education teacher, and that was to alleviate some of the stress at the Elmwood School. We, because of summer enrollments, had gone all the way to 15 students in an intensive classroom. That does not service. You can't have 15 intensive students with one teacher under one roof. And so we've added a 0.5 to that setting. We have also had to add 5 special education paraprofessionals, and those were just added because student IEPs dictated the needs for those positions. And then finally, we have a middle school ELA director that has historically been grant funded that will now need to be folded into the operating budget. And just to give you some kind of an idea of what constitutes 1%, every time this budget increases by a percentage, that's a dollar amount of about $599,000. You may also know we have a new director of student services, and she came on board July 1, and she has started to look at some of our special education data. You can see maybe at the top of this slide, and this comes right from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education website, that we have 533 students on ed plans currently in the district. And so when we say in the district, they are students who come physically into the Hopkinton Public Schools every day. They're not students who are part of being outplaced. Of those 533 students, 406 of them are people who have a documented disability only. 78 of them have a documented disability, and they also qualify as low income. 39 of those students have a documented disability, and they qualify for English Learner Services. And then 10 of those students are students with disabilities who are also qualifying for English Learner Services, who also qualify for low income. And so we put this slide in so you could just see how disparate the needs are. And these are some of the things that our new director, Mrs. Hanscom, is looking at. On the next slide at the top.
Can I ask a question? Yeah. Just a curiosity question. When we look at that differentiating data, do we differentiate services, for example, because of the low income status? Do we do additional services?
No, we wouldn't do that.
Okay. So it's just really about showing us the picture?
Yes, that's right. And I think when we talk about some low-income students, sometimes we do need to do a little bit of wraparound service. Sure. So we want to make sure that they have ample food, that they have, and so we have a social worker. So there are budget implications, maybe just not classroom budget implications.
I got you. Thank you. That's helpful to know.
So when we look at this next slide, this is slide 9, the percentage of students with disabilities is 13%. And this is a community that has always hovered around 13% of students qualifying for special education services. Some years it's 12.5%, some years it's 13.5%, but that is 13% of the entire student population. So if you remember the slides where we looked at the growth in our student enrollment, we've added about 600 students since the 2018-2019 school year, which also means then that 13% of those 600 students are students who would qualify for special education services. What that has done, on the next slide, thank you, is you can see that in 2019, we had a ratio of 10 teachers, special education teachers, for every 100 students with disabilities. And now in 2023, that ratio has dropped, and we have 7.3 teachers for every 100 students with disabilities. So what that means is that the teachers' caseloads are growing. So in 2019, the caseload might have been 10 students on average, of course, because not all special education programs are the same. And then today, that caseload has gone up on average to 14. Now, if you're thinking about a high school teacher, that person could have a high school caseload of, say, 22. But if you're going back into those elementary intensive classrooms, we can't have 10 intensive students with one teacher under one roof. And so what we try to do is balance all of those things out. When we were at 10, we were much more comfortable than we are right now at 14. And I have there's a high likelihood that we'll be looking for special education teachers.
So just when we present the budget, we always break it down between, salary, contractual obligations, special education. So when we look forward to FY25, comparing it back to FY24, our contractual salary obligations for all of our bargaining units was 3.4% of the increase in FY24. So then when you wrap that in with all the other contractual obligations, and that is transportation, out of district, all those things, that brought that contractual obligation in FY24 to 4.4% of our increase. So looking forward to 25, that would probably be about the same.
So if I may, in terms of dollar value, is that therefore 2.4 million? How much is it?
So about 600,000 is every 1%, so 4%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost 4.5% though, right?
Yeah.
So
And a quick question. This 4.4% is for the, what percentage of the entire budget? Is it 60%, 70%? The contractual obligation is part of the entire budget by what percent? I'm just checking.
I don't have that number. You know, because we frame this in context of the budget message, you know, that a department can be increased by X. These are some of our fixed challenges of fitting within that X.
Exactly, yeah. That's why maybe later it would be helpful to see that number. So out of your overall budget, the contractual obligation, if it's 50%, that means its impact is 2.2% of the overall budget increase. If it's 80%, it's a different number. That's what I'm trying to get at once you have, you know, your more numbers, I think, out of that.
Okay, so thank you. Next slide. And then just as a reminder, our out-of-district tuitions continue to stay at that elevated level, so we will still be looking at that out-of-district special education stabilization.
We can go to the next slide, please.
One back.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, we mixed up. No, you were in the right place. There we go. So where does that leave us? Some of this initial data, what we are looking at is an ELA director, the possibility of 3 special education FTEs. We know that we have these 5 special education paraprofessionals. They've already been added this year in FY24. Teacher staffing at a possibility of 8.4 FTEs, and that's just due to enrollment increases. We believe we are going to have to begin growing our administrative team when we start to think about some of our elementary schools, Marathon, Elmwood, Hopkins. When I started working here, the Hopkins enrollment, for example, was in the 400s. Today, it's about 650. And we still have 1 assistant principal for 650 students. The administrators in those buildings are really starting to drown just under the sheer student numbers. Last one is, and then as Mrs. Rodnick was just speaking about our contractual obligations, I do want you to know that when we meet with our principals and directors and they come to us with their budgets, we make sure that they have data, very good data for their asks. We're not willy-nilly about it. We make sure that what they're asking for is something that they truly need to open the doors each day in the Hopkinton Public Schools. We do ask them to consider the needs of all the children. And sometimes those needs are food needs, sometimes they're textbook needs, sometimes they're additional faculty needs. And we ask them also to focus on what they need to have and what is not nice to have. There are some times when we would love to add a program or put another teacher just to reduce maybe a class size in a particular place. And we have had to say no to some of those asks. And then finally, on the next slide, what we started showing you last year was the breakdown of the per pupil expenditure. And so that top bar are the district rankings for FY21, and the bottom bar is the most current data. It was updated in 2023, but it's FY22 per pupil expenditure. And just so you can see, if the circle is red around the number, it means that Hopkinton's ranking is in the bottom quartile or the bottom 25%. And we don't show this to you so that we can say, you know, we need something more or we're not getting the job done, because I think our metrics show that we are getting the job done. But I think that this is an illustration of the fact that we do an awful lot on I think, very conservative budgeting. And so that's what we wanted to share with you tonight. And thank you very much for having us at the table and just taking in all of this information.
I really appreciate this. One thing that, and it may already be up on your website, is your revised capital plan. Is that available?
Yes, we did share it. It's in the folder, and in fact, Nancy did reference it earlier.
I think it's also on the school website.
Yeah, I haven't checked if it was on the website yet. I think.
I believe it's also in the packet from that, was it?
Yes.
2 meetings ago? If you, Muriel, if you have trouble finding it,
I'll find it.
I'm happy to send you the link.
Yeah.
To share with the select board.
Yeah, maybe we could have it in our packet next time. I see the Elmwood sheet, but not the revised capital.
Quick question on the ranking. What is the source of this? Is it MSBA or source of the data for the expenditure, per pupil expenditure ranking?
Oh, yes, so that's on a mass.gov website, so I can actually just send you the link to that as well.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody have any questions from anywhere around the table?
If I may, I just have one question regarding the special education, the students with disabilities. Looks like 1 in every 8 students would have disability and need a special education service. Is that true?
I haven't done that math, but I don't know that.
You're mentioning
yeah, that's about
13%,
right? Because it's 4,200 kids and 500.
Yeah, so 30%. So I'm just wondering, do we have like a threshold we're trying to meet? Is this a natural increase because of people moving in, or because of population changes, or are we providing certain policy attractive to the area, so we're attracting more students with disability? I'm just curious, like, how do we
I don't
gauge the situation?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question. I do know that we provide very good special education services in the town of Hopkinton. But I think if you did a little bit of research on the DESE website, I'm happy to do that for any of you, and you look at the percent of students who are qualifying for special education services, by and large, our 13% is very low. There are some districts where, the numbers are up to 18%, 20%.
We're below the state average.
Oh, well below.
Okay. Yeah, just curious. Thank you.
Okay. Next steps, Mr. Kamalo.
I was just wondering, is Holly trying to say something?
Oh, I'm sorry, Holly, did you want to say something?
No, I think everybody has done a great job. So I know what's going on. I agree with everything that's been said. Thank you very much.
Yeah, next steps. Obviously, the October 3rd meeting is important. We will put together some draft budget message for consideration by the select board. We'll share it with the school committee as well as the appropriations committee. In the meantime, if any of the school committee, appropriations committee, select board members have any specific requests regarding how you would like us to present the budget, not necessarily in terms of where we are now, but the entire budget process, let us know. I want to work on that.
Thank you. Do we, in past years, I think we've done a vote on the actual calendar itself. I don't know if you're looking for a vote from each committee or not.
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
Do you want to take your vote first?
Sure. I'll entertain a motion on the budget calendar.
As amended, because
as amended
from what we was.
Second. I so move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay.
Okay, so the school committee, because we do have a member remote, we will do a roll call vote, but I would seek a motion from a school committee member related to the budget calendar.
I move we accept budget calendar as amended.
Excellent. So motion by Susan, is there a second? Second by Amanda. We'll do a roll call starting with you, Amanda. Aye. Susan? Aye. Holly?
Yes.
And I am also a yes, so unanimous for us.
Okay, from the Appropriation Committee, do I hear a motion to move the schedule as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Ready for a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Nay? 4-0?
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I ask one last question? I know that we're way over time, but this is really important. Do people have priorities or thoughts that they want to share at this time about the upcoming budget message development and discussion?
I don't have any off the top of my head, but I would be, I am planning on attending your October 3rd. If you would like me to share some that come out of our meeting, I would be happy to bring those forward at that time. Or send you an email.
Perfect. Always happy to have you, Nancy. And what's one more meeting?
You know, we're having fun, right?
Yeah, such fun.
This presentation is very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah,
for
very
putting it
helpful.
together. Thank you.
Anybody else? Any thoughts before we're sort of really putting together?
I guess for the budget message, I guess we don't have all the information, as Mr. Khumalo said. It's kind of a challenge when you get the information, but then you have to see what your revenues are and where things are. I am concerned where the numbers are to avoid an override. I know that's a concern, but if that can make its way into the budget message or not, or do we have to have actual numbers? But it's kind of a question comment, but that is a concern for me.
I appreciate that a lot, and I think for me, I know we haven't gotten to me, but I know we aren't going to have final information, but that's the kind of information that I want to be able to contemplate, knowing what we think we're facing, at least big picture. I agree with you. I think that it's important to know what exactly we have available, what exactly we think we're going to be obligated to, and if we're within the bounds of avoiding an override is an important key message. Anybody else?
I think I would just echo what Mike said too, and that with inflation the way it is, I think focusing on what we need to have, like the superintendent said, is really important this year. And we're going to have a big expense of the Elmwood School project. So I think keeping it to really what we need and avoiding the override is ideal.
I think along the same lines, the revised capital one that's already out, we can look at that. The Elmwood, we already have the numbers and the tentative, some of these calculations. What would be helpful is maybe from the finance department and appropriations committee's help, if you have any numbers that you can project in terms of revenue and overall various big item expenses, that would help frame the conversation along those lines.
I so appreciate everybody coming.
Thank you.
All right, and the presentation. And look forward to working with you on a hard process. I know it's a hard process, and I know how much goes into it from, certainly from town volunteers, but the professional staff. We really appreciate the grind. Right? It's a real grind.
Ready to roll our sleeves up.
Here we go. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's going to continue out here.
Motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
Adjourn. 8:02.
Okay, next we have town employee appointments. Can the library come on up? Thank you. Thank you for your patience. I'm sorry we're so late. Mr. Khumalo.
Yes. By way of introduction, we have two very qualified, experienced individuals that I'm asking the Select Board to respectfully confirm as town manager appointments. By way of introduction, they both went through an extensive interview process. With regard to Daniel, the first round interview panel included Nancy Hill, Daniel Cook, Amy Beck, and Christian Merrill. And then the second round interview panel was Nancy Hill, Danielle Cook, and Jessica Lawrence from the HR office. And with regards to Ray, clearly the interview panel was very, very confident in the value add, and it included Nancy Hill and Alison Kelly from the Circulation and Technical Services Supervisor section.
So Nancy, take us away, introduce your folks.
So Ray Stevenson has been working with us at the Hopkinton Library for the past year as a substitute senior library assistant. They have been trained in circulation, young adult services, and reference. Ray is an incredible asset to the library staff and to the community. They are a self-starter, always looking for something to do, never satisfied to sit on their laurels, and works great with our teen population as well. So we're very pleased to recommend Ray become a permanent member of our staff. Do you want me to do both, or?
I think you can.
Separately? Okay. And we have Daniel Boudreau, who we're putting forth as our adult services librarian. As you know, Danielle Cook was promoted to our reference and technology supervisor, which left her position vacant. Daniel dazzled everyone on the selection, both selection committees. We were very impressed by those unteachable skills that he brings to the position. He showed incredible care and concern in answering a question about interaction with a difficult patron, to both how he handles the experience for the patron, but also for his fellow staff members. And that was the one thing that really impressed all of us. In speaking with his references, they talk about Daniel being a calming presence among the staff, and being someone who is thoughtful and conscientious, who is never satisfied to not be doing something, and we are really thrilled to put him forth as our candidate for adult services.
Wonderful. Really pleased to have you both here. Do you have any questions?
Well, I just want to say that your resumes are great, but your letters to the library were better. They were really quite personal, and they told me a lot about each of you, and I am excited to see you develop in the different ways that you want to. Very impressive. What you want to do with adults and what you want to do with programming and with photoshopping and all of that in your background. It's just, I think that the two of you are very exciting candidates for these positions.
Yeah, I think I'll just echo what Mary Jo said. You know, your resumes looks great, and it was good to hear about you. We're glad that we have a place for you, and you have lots of library experience, so you're welcome.
Yeah, along the same line, thank you for choosing our town. Thank you for all the good work that you have done. And this gives an opportunity to continue your service towards it. So I appreciate your being here, applying here, great resumes. And it's really nice to see that the library has created a workplace where you can coach, nourish, and mentor the employees, your own, and then have a path for them forward for promotion or permanent positions. That's really tells a lot about the workplace and how you are grooming and growing our talents. So thank you and welcome.
And I actually forgot to mention that Ray, since starting at the library, has decided to go to library school, so I'm an official librarian.
Excellent, thank you.
So not a lot to add. I mean, I think I was wowed by your resumes and your letters. It doesn't surprise me to find out that the interview team were all wowed by you, so welcome aboard. Really happy to have you.
Oh, so what's going to be left to me? I'm going to have to ask a question because I always like to be able to give you an opportunity to highlight yourself and your passion for your work in Hopkinton. So I hope it's a softball, and if you don't like the question, pick a different one. I'll start with you, Ray. Same question, though. Tell me a little bit about why the library is sort of your life's goal and the magic of a public library for a community and for a person.
Yeah, so I originally went to school for art, and the big thing that I wanted to do with it was to engage with community spaces. And I found that with a town like Hopkinton, it's a very excellent space for different parts of the community to interact with each other on different levels, whether it's just day-to-day interactions or larger community events. And I'm really excited to bring like creative spaces and inclusive spaces into that area.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to echo actually what Ray said. I think one of the most important parts of the public library is that it's a place that people can meet and interact with each other. I actually began working in public libraries about 2.5 years ago, so coming out of a very long sort of pandemic quarantine. And it was kind of how I came back out into the world in a way, and it was very healing and helpful for me to meet all sorts of different people all throughout the day. So I think the library is a very important institution and a place, and I'm very excited to work towards maintaining it.
Wonderful. I'm really excited. Thank you for that.
I was just going to add, after hearing from Ray, my sister had her bachelor's in music theory and ended up, it's hard to get jobs in music theory, but she worked at a library as an assistant, and then she really loved it and went back to get her MLS too. And as luck would have it for her, there was an opening for a full librarian, and she was finishing her degree, and it all worked out. So I wish you the best of luck.
Well, thank you very much. I will entertain a motion on these two appointments.
Madam Chair, I move that the Select Board adopt I move to confirm the town manager's appointment of Ray Stevenson as Senior Library Assistant at the Public Library.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And then the next motion?
Madam Chair, I move to confirm the town manager's appointment of Daniel Boudreau, I'm sorry if I mispronounced it, as Adult Services Librarian at the Public Library.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Congratulations. Thank you so much.
Picture.
Sure. We're gonna have to figure it out because we're gonna be way up.
Oh, there's the tables. Yeah.
Yes. That'll work. Yeah.
Here? Can we get it? You guys can fill in. Here we go. I stopped walking, but that's in the discussion.
Where go?
Over here. Escaping? Come on.
Cheese. Say Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
So our next item on the agenda is a police department update. Do you have Chief Bennett on Zoom, I'm guessing?
Cyrus.
I shared I lost sound as I was joining, so I'm not sure.
We hear you.
I can hear you.
Do you hear us?
I do.
Okay. We definitely hear you. I think you're going to give us an update on 3 items: the school resource officer, the school opening update, and then we'll talk a little bit about the promotional process, the select board role following that.
Okay. Through the chair, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to discuss some fantastic work that we're doing at the PD, and I'm really proud of the relationship that we share with Dr. Kavanaugh and her team in delivering the safest school district that we can. We all take that safety of the children seriously and invest a great deal of time in ensuring not only that we do everything we can to keep the children safe, to provide a feeling of safety for them, because being safe and feeling safe are 2 distinct things, and we need to make sure we're addressing it comprehensively. So before school even gets started, we began with a campaign of focused on traffic safety. We did a press release and social media, had a social media presence. Sergeant McNeil oversees our traffic coordination programming. We put out our reader board signs to announce that school is going to be reopening, much like the traditional schools open yellow bus stickers. We placed these in high-profile places to remind motorists to allow for more time and to be cautious of pedestrian traffic and the increased general traffic. On the opening day and subsequent days after, we had an increased presence at all of the schools, a uniform presence, so that the students and the staff could feel our presence. It's been months, but many have not forgotten how we ended the school year last year, tragically in the nation, and we're very understanding and empathetic for that. And we want everybody to know that we're here, and we're always here. Officers greeted the students at each of the schools in the morning and departure, and they conducted extra patrols of the schools for staff and students to see the cruisers, as well as at the beginning and in the warm weeks, we work on the proper opening of doors. It's due to the necessity to try to cool the buildings. Sometimes teachers will prop doors open, or staff, or as a matter of convenience, so the officers will go around, locate the doors, contact the school resource officer, and they'll work with staff to talk to whomever may be doing that. And we have been very successful in cutting down on that issue. School resource officer remains an integral part of our focus within the schools and has a wide variety of responsibilities. He conducts ALICE training with the new staff, which is active killer type of training and how to respond to volatile, dangerous situations. And he conducts that training with the new staff. He focuses on arrival and dismissal, safety and traffic concerns. Of course, he does parking enforcement in order to keep our fire lanes and egress and access points open. His focus is on the various school campuses, and he will take a ride sometimes and just go right around the other schools or stop in so they feel his presence. He's responsible for insurance compliance with security and safety protocols. One of the things we do each year is familiarity tours for our officers. They're large buildings, they don't get in there a lot, and it's easy to, it's advantageous for them to periodically get a familiarity tour of the facility. It also shows the colors within the building, meaning our uniform. through some work with Dr. Kavanaugh, we were able to host 2 active killer trainings that Senator Van Rollins was trained to deliver. We had 2 very large groups of staff, including staff, teachers, and para-staff. And Senator Van Rollins discussed reacting to active killers. We used to call them active shooters, but in today's world, we have to recognize that there's more than one way to commit a great deal of harm. Soon we'll be doing bus evacuation drills and fire drills. The other thing that school resource officer does is that they assist with custody and restraining order, probate order concerns. Unfortunately, those do exist within our district, and it's important that we manage them properly. As a school resource officer, they also handle court proceedings and referrals, including working with the district attorney's office in our diversion programs. Always, transportation is critical, and especially early on in the school year, trying to have the best flow of the buses because we're on a very tight schedule. So we work with the transportation department and other staff members from the district to try to make that as efficient as possible. And lastly, the school resource officer trains the crossing guards. So we remain very committed to launching the school year in a very positive and in a very positive way that shows that we're there. We show it in force, and we quickly address any problems that come up so that we can quickly settle into the school year. That's what I have.
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you to your department for your presence and your active involvement in that critical time when schools open, and also for your patience and forbearance with the traffic complications throughout the Main Street Corridor project as it's played out. So it's a busy start to the year. I appreciate the update on the school resource officer participation. I think that we're going to have a joint presentation hopefully next month with the school department. A little bit more nuanced on what the role is within the building, what the supervision and oversight is for the school resource officer program, and a little bit, I think what I remember hearing, a little bit about the ways that potentially the departments would like that program to grow. Is that correct?
Yes. So we brought that up. We brought that up in the meeting at the close of last year. Had several conversations with school resource officer Santoro, with Dr. Carol Kavanaugh and Principal Bishop, and we certainly could talk about it. One of the things that Dr. Kavanaugh really was interested in talking about was kind of the day in the life of a school resource officer, what activities to make up most of their day, and what other skill sets they bring. As I've discussed with other groups around the community, school resource officer has very specialized training, is nationally certified, and particularly Officer Santoro has an incredible skill set. So that's I look forward to that conversation.
Okay. Do we know when we're going to be doing that? October 3rd or October 17th?
I won't be available October 3rd, and I would not want to book Dr. Kavanaugh.
Are you outreaching to her in order to establish that schedule, or can we support that in any way?
Yes, I can do that. I can get some tentative dates. Would you like me to go to Mr. Kamala?
Yeah, that's totally fine, Chief. And then just invite the community to participate in that conversation so that we have a robust exchange of information and ideas, and to continue to build that program in a way that feels really safe and strong for the school.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I know the program has a lot of support throughout the community and a long history, and we want to make sure it thrives, and we want to give it everything it needs to
I think the unfortunate thing is that we're struggling with a big community issue, and we just want to make sure that everybody is part of the conversation. It's part, we all lean in together and understand the role and the oversight and the supervision and the connections that are made for students who might be at risk to all the resources that are there, so that we really establish a great sense of community trust if there's been any worries from people.
Couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
My question is doesn't really have to do with these items, but it does have to do with school. And I was downtown 2 Fridays ago, I think it was Friday, I'm not sure.
A Friday ago.
Early release day. And I counted in my small area where I was, at least 200 children or semi-adults walking downtown. There were hundreds of kids, not 50 kids, which I'm used to seeing, or 60 kids, but there were a few hundred kids coming downtown on an early release day. And I said, God bless the police department, but any suggestions about what we can do about this? I mean, the parents should know that, this larger group is not a good idea. And there were hundreds. It wasn't a few. There were hundreds.
So can I also say that I drove through town, I don't mean to interrupt you, Chief, but I drove through town at the same time, and very thoughtfully, because there were kids everywhere. But I also saw a police presence as well.
Well, that's what I said. Thank God for the police that day, but...
Yeah. But I think this is the dynamic on early release days. I think this is, and it kind of charmed me. It took me back to when I was raising my kids. But it's a lot.
It's a lot more kids.
It's a lot of activity.
Than I've ever seen before. Hundreds of kids.
I didn't mean to stump on your question.
60, maybe 100 kids, but this group was huge. So.
Okay.
Are you looking for my thoughts?
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So, on every afternoon when the children get out, a large portion of the student population go to after-school activities, whether it's sports or clubs that they're in, or tutoring or detention, right? That doesn't happen on the half days. So with the massive release of the students, and this has been spoken within the community, I think a community solution, a group working together to identify potential activities for students, maybe spread them out on different gathering points. There was some success years ago for developing activities for particular groups, especially there was one group focused on clean living, and they had a large group, and they would stay back and they would have pizza and things like that. I think it's a community topic that we need to come together. It's not something that we want the police trying to solve. We don't want the police having negative interactions with our children. We're trying to build those relationships. We're here. We're always here, to deal with any issues that come up that are police related. But I'd like for my team to be a part of a community discussion, maybe getting together and having activities for them. They love being downtown. It's nice for the businesses to be supported. We can also have problems with businesses, and we've all seen some of the news headlines about loss of merchandise. So if we could support a conversation. I don't think any one of us can come up with a real answer, but I think amongst us, we have a lot of ideas that we can pull together.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Shango.
Thank you, Chief, for the update, and thanks to the officers for their wonderful service and to your department. One thing I was wondering along these lines, as I was listening to our school budget-related discussion and the growth, what has been the school resource officer number growth over the last few years, and with the current number of students that we have and that we are seeing to grow in the next few years, do you have enough, or do you see potential new needs in near future.
Thank you. I think we need to be talking long-term and all, based on all the budget discussions, we need to be talking about needs. I'm comfortable within our current structure. If we can get to full staffing, then I can add additional resource officers. I can add additional detective and have a total of 2 or 3 school resource officers. Right now, we're talking with some very new members who might be interested, and some more senior members who wanted to establish themselves within the role of patrol. But there could be some interest among even the existing troops. So I do see the expansion opportunities in the detectives as well as the SROs.
Thank you. Yeah, I think more to come and discuss, but this is very important for our community that we have, sufficient support and safety oversight for our students. Thank you.
So the other item on the agenda is talking about this. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the update. I think it's really important that you guys come and do the active shooter training. It's depressing, but it is important, because it could happen here, and I really appreciate that. And the reminder about propping open the doors, because I know I see that where I work too, that students will just leave the door open because it's convenient. They don't want to have to go around the front door, or even staff sometimes. And it's really important that we don't do that, even though it's convenient. Let's see. I'm trying to think. When we have our next discussion, I thought it might be good to also invite Youth and Family Services, because they could talk about youth that have get involved with the courts, unfortunately, and maybe in the diversion programs. I think that would be helpful.
I think that's a great idea. With the SRO sort of in depth.
Yeah, there too, yeah.
Appreciate that. All set?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I also wanted to say, before we moved on, I was down, like I said, Mary Jo, I was downtown too, and I want to make sure we end on a happy note. Everything I saw was like all high energy and wonderful. The kids were, the kids were happy to be together. They were chatting and talking. Not for nothing, I saw so much diversity in our population represented that it was really joyful to see. So many kids happy to be back to school, happy to be getting out early, certainly.
Yeah, I'm laughing because my daughter is one of them, and she looks forward to their visit to downtown once a week. So.
I did feel the same way about the kids walking down to downtown. I just wonder where they were going and what they did when they get down here. And I know Bills has had a bunch of complaints about problems with students.
This week?
Not this week.
Okay.
Well, I don't know this week. I haven't talked to them.
Yeah.
But
hopefully not.
There were hundreds, and let's hope not. But where did they go?
But I do think
there are no places for them to go.
Right. I do think the conversation about activities and places for our kids to go is a really good one to have.
I know one constituent who suggested that some kind of teen center.
We've heard teen center, and it would be wonderful.
That forever. So
And I will say, I've always felt that having an adult or SRO presence downtown really does help, because even just the kids seeing the police officer there on the street, they're not gonna. They might have been thinking of running across the street before the light changed, but then they're gonna think twice with that adult presence there.
I did
These
see
were not
everybody.
little kids either. They
were all using the buttons and waiting patiently. I was not to put too fine a point on the traffic downtown and the construction being a little bit. I sat through several lights, so I saw several groups waiting patiently at the lights. So kudos to the young people who were doing their best to be safe and follow traffic rules, and even in their excitement. So saw a lot of good things, but. It's time for us to reinvigorate the conversation on constructive activities and places for our young people to go when they've got free time. The third piece, I know that we're going to discuss it more, but I wanted to sort of tee up the conversation on the promotional process. I have done a little bit of research talking to representatives from other police departments. I want to make it really clear that we're not suggesting a change to the internal process that the chief and the HR department goes through. And speaking to the fact that we are actually the hiring and promoting authority. And as long as I've been on the select board, even previously, we've never had a process where we really, or that I know of, that we really sort of get involved, review the candidates, interact with all the materials, and understand really how the promotions fit in the departmental structure and growth. So that's a little bit of where I'm coming from. It is typical for the hiring authority, which in this case is the select board, and it's typical for that to be the case, for there to be a very specific process where we would interact with the materials, the chief and the candidate and the HR department before we schedule sort of the ceremonial gathering at the select board meeting. So I want to just open it up for conversation, and if other people have priorities that we think about in terms of what we feel a durable process going forward is for the select board to have that kind of review process for ourselves as part of our decision-making process on promotions, and it would also be hiring. So I throw it out for a little bit of discussion, but I know that we'll discuss it more soon.
So through the chair, I think that there is a process, and I agree with you that, the select board is the hiring entity. But going back to one of our trainings, we were talking about the macro and getting into the weeds, and I think this may be one area where we have professional staff that is involved in hiring. What I would be more interested in learning is what is the process, and what they go through in the promotional process. But as far as I don't think I need to be reviewing personnel files and determining who gets promoted and who doesn't. I mean, I think we leave that up to, this is just my opinion, but I think we leave that up to our professional staff. But it would be helpful to understand what they go through. My 2 cents.
Anybody else have any early questions? We'll put this on the agenda to have sort of a more complete discussion.
Michelle, do you have something for others? I was just going to add too that I think the only promotion that's been done since I've been on the board was for the deputy chief, and that was the week after I had my surgery, so I didn't attend. So I'm a little new to this process as well. But I would just when we're hiring a director or someone here, the HR staff comes and explains the whole interview process to us. I think that's helpful. And kind of goes through, there were, 5 candidates, and then we narrowed it, and then we had a second interview team. Knowing the whole process is very helpful, I think, to us. That's all I have for now, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, to the chair, I just want to add saying that I want to understand a little bit about the process. I think we have heard and seen some of that, and I agree. Of course, depend on our professional staff, the chief, the process to take care of the promotion, due diligence, and what needs to be done to select the final ones. And also keeping in mind that promotion is something that we need to grow our workforce, to grow our talents, and to motivate and attract talents in the police force. So I'm very supportive of the process, and depending on the professionals who groom them and coach them, train them, and then evaluate them. But along the same lines, I think, and it's maybe my learning as well, that it would be good to have a little bit of better understanding as you present the promotions, maybe before the meeting or during the meeting from HR and from the chief and others involved, whatever the process a little bit, what were the considerations and how the selection was done among others. And I think that's just due diligence I would expect on all promotions and hiring. So that's my 2 cents, and I think the town and the residents would appreciate it, and the police force would appreciate it, because that gives them the credit that's due through the promotion and the badges and the I would say satisfaction and honor of the promotion as well. It's all good. I think it's all something that happens in any professional organization, and it's happening here as well. I'm pretty sure about that. But bringing a little more, I think, process information would certainly help everyone to understand and support it more down the line.
Are we?
Yeah, go ahead.
We're just in a tough place, but are we signaling out the police department? Because we hired the DPW director based on a resume and HR's appointment. We've hired many people, in fact, almost everybody we've hired based on their resume and the HR professional people's appointments. It does seem like this is we're signaling out a department, and it really.
So let me just. I can hear that it bothers you, and I'm sorry that it's bothering you. But the difference is that we are the hiring authority. In those cases, we are just hearing and approving the town manager's decision for the hiring. He is the hiring authority. The difference is that we are the hiring authority. And I'm gonna speak candidly, right? It was one of my first meetings when we promoted deputy chief, and I know we know things now that or the circumstances have changed in a hard way. But let me ask you, I had questions or wished I felt comfortable bringing questions. I had some reservations about that decision, and where is the right time and the right place to have a candid conversation if you have reason to have questions about a promotion? How do we do that?
I think that's a really good question.
That's a good question, of course.
But we have to publicly question it.
And to Mary Jo's point, I think, it's also a learning that Muriel just mentioned, that the authority and the responsibility is a little different on those two fronts. And, we want to make sure that we are learning from what the situation demands at times. And it's not to reflect on anything on anyone, and definitely not to our department, but there has been some challenges that we have faced in recent times, and that kind of also tells us that we have the fiduciary duty from the town representative perspective that maybe we do the due diligence in a little more transparent way than before, only because of these challenging experience and times. And again, not to reflect on anything, it's more to embolden our police department, ourselves, and make sure everyone feels more comfortable that we have taken some learning and moving towards a, I would say, more confident and more robust way. That said, again, it's not to see every time we see something, like with the budget process, our job, I feel, in some ways is to, how can we do it better next time? And how can we learn from it? It's just to reflect on that. And I agree completely that there are, emotional things sometimes involved. There are optics involved, and especially when, one of our biggest revered service, like the police department, we are very sensitive of that. And I personally have huge respect for our police department for their services. We are indebted to them that they are the first in line with their lives to protect us, and they've done a tremendous job in the last, so many years and ongoing basis. And a lot of times it's thankless job. All that taken into account, I'm here, and I'm sure you all are, to support the department, and we are demonstrating it where we can with, the compensation structure where we can, with hiring great talents where we can, and supporting our chief as well. And we have seen some tractions. I do have a question on some of the data I heard today from the association. But all that said, I think we need to change the optics or the perspective a little bit, thinking that we are here to criticize. It's not the goal at all. Or single out. That's not the goal at all. The overall intent, my intent, and I think everyone's I'm hearing, is to promote, motivate, and support our police department. And if a little bit of process that we had, but we may not have. We meaning in the previous decade or years, I wasn't involved in most of them. It's okay to elaborate on some of those process if the time demands it, or time shows that we have opportunity to bring everyone together to a better platform.
I think that's all fine and well and good, but right now we are down teams of men, and we are down officers as we go up in rank a lot. And this man, or our chief, needs help. And by us just taking our time and saying, oh, let's wait for this, let's do that, we have to make decisions. Mm-hmm. And we have to make decisions that are going to help him and help him now. But by, let's wait till we get this, let's wait. I mean, we could have a report in a month, but we could have it in a year and a half. And if we're not going to promote anybody or hire anybody in that time, we're not helping them. And I just feel like if we are going to do something like this, then we got to do it right now and move it.
So
we're not going to be, call up and say, look, we need a report, we need it now. We can't just drag this thing out. We need teams. We need a lot of police officers on the ground, and we need to promote a lot of people to give them some authority. And we need it.
Through the chair.
Hold on.
Can I ask a question to that?
Hold on 1 second. Hold on. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same team, all on the same page. I do want, and I think we need, a process whereby the select board of today or the select board of the future has an opportunity to ask questions about a promotion or about a hiring before the whole family is in front of us. That's my whole point. In case there are times when we have concerns about a particular decision, and that's fair play.
Totally. So, Madam Chair, what I was going to ask is actually ask our chief, given the overall responsibility that you have and the experience and the great career, how would you suggest we handle it better, that we don't, it doesn't appear to be demotivating for anyone or over-scrutinizing anyone, but at the same time, we have our due process and follow it, in that direction. It's all about, as I mentioned earlier, making it better. How can we support you better, support the police department better, and through this, fiduciary duty that we have, doing that as well.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak on that topic. This is by far the most robust sergeant promotion process to ever occur within the Hopkinton Police Department. The process is over 8 pages long. It's governed within the collective bargaining agreement, and it was signed off by the board at the time. There's a 40% value assigned to a test. The exam is given by an outside proctor. That is given a numerical score. There's 40% by an interview panel that's created with strict guidelines on what topics the candidates that be interviewed on, how the scoring metrics will occur, and the grading of each question. That was overseen by Human Resources. Prior to me getting the results, I had the results of the exam, but I did not have the results of the interview. So those two things comprise 80% of the scoring process. HR came in my office after the interviews, asked me for my evaluation, which is a metric that I assembled through reaching out to some subject matter experts based on the collective bargaining agreement as agreed upon and signed on, and the categories that were set forth in the policy that was an appendix to the collective bargaining agreement. I created metrics. Once I provided my assessment, blind to the interview, those numbers were combined to create the rankings.
Thank you.
So through every step of the phase, really I was managing, and HR was managing a predetermined and governed process.
Thank you, Chief.
I guess I would add an apology to that. I guess I should have spent more time at that meeting describing that. It's pretty much locked in stone.
Thank you, Chief, for that. What part of that process or your process goes into, or how do you consider how you are building out your department? So how does the promotional strategy play within your overall vision or strategy for your department? And how do you come to those decisions?
So as we've discussed, both you and I personally, as well as you and I in the board meetings, my intention was to promote these two. The next day there would have been an announcement for the next sergeant's exam, which was scheduled December 8th with a library with a vendor that had been selected by a bid process, and we would have shortly thereafter announced the lieutenant process in accordance with the agreed upon policy. So my goal with building out the department was to get to the holidays with sergeants in place, specialty sergeants in place, and a new lieutenant.
So the lieutenant spot has been open for 2 years. What's the strategy with having left that open all that time?
So as I've said, I need to look at my organization, what I have, and what's going on in the organization, and make promotions at the right time and build out at the right time. There were things that were being worked on, and that is being addressed, that have to be addressed. For instance, last August 24th, I became aware that we had a member of the department accused of something very serious, a matter that I had no idea was coming. And then subsequently, we've had to deal with that for over a year because I couldn't deal with it earlier. I could have dealt with it years earlier, but I wasn't given that opportunity. So there's things that, there are things that the department and the town is working through, and we're poised right now to move forward and quickly and deliberately deliver on the conversations that I began with you on December 4th.
Can I ask you a question?
Ask a clarifying.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I had requested, so I'm glad to hear you describe the robust process for promotions. I had requested the contract just to review it because I'd forgotten. And it's only, I think I'm missing pages because I just see Appendix A, promotion eligibility, and it's really short. It doesn't describe that robust process that you just described. So can I get that? There must be an extra appendix that I don't have?
We can share the promotional process.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Through the chair, one thing I was wondering, and I appreciate Mary Jo's earlier comment, I do think, given the service needs, given the gap, and also motivational factor, we shouldn't be delaying it unless there is, substantial reason that collectively we all think, with your advice, that may be impactful enough or carry enough weight that everyone should wait for that. The reason I say that is in the last meeting we mentioned, and Madam Chair mentioned, that there are some reports, some assessment that are pending, and for confidentiality and for various reasons, we can't, of course, elaborate on that and share too much on those. But in your view, would you suggest that we wait for that, or there is no reason for waiting for those information while we are, looking at these promotions? Because we do want to, move ahead at the right speed for the right motivational reasons as well. But we also, as I mentioned, have a fiduciary duty, and I don't know enough to, really assess that. So I'm asking you, what would be your suggestion?
So, couple of things. One is, I'm not clear on, when you mentioned reports, there's the topic of promotion, and there's another topic of a report.
Yeah,
and then there's a topic of the departmental review that is being discussed and formalized in scope development and Mrs. Kramer's request. So those are the three topics kind of right now that we're addressing at this executive level. We have a pending report on the disciplinary matter that's been ongoing for a very long time. We have a request from the chair for a departmental review, and we have this promotion process. So those are kind of the executive level things we're grappling with right now. It is clear with 74 Main Street, the workers want, need, and we're anticipating movement on promotions. I presented the plan, we talked about it multiple times, had many conversations, and I feel we should move forward with the plan. We still have to fill a lieutenant and a deputy if you allow me to keep the structure the same. There's still much work to be done. So, we've been, from my staff, they're looking for movement. They want opportunity. They want advancement. They want promotions. They want people. They want the outside people. We're trying to recruit to see excitement in the organization, and that's what I was trying to build.
Can I ask you a question, Chief? What is the best way for the select board members who have the fiduciary responsibility, have the responsibility? What is the best way for us to actively participate and ensure that the select board really has insight into the promotion process and the hiring process? I know in some towns, a select board member sits on that hiring committee or that promotional decision committee. Is that a way forward? I know that in some towns, this chief comes forward with the presentation with the recommendation of the promotions that are upcoming, but there's an opportunity for conversation to understand the chief's decision and perhaps ask questions before everybody is in the room with their families. And you don't have to answer tonight, but what are ways that we can build the transparency for the select board who ultimately do the hiring to be able to ask legitimate, challenging, expansive questions during the process?
So, moving forward, there's always an opportunity to discuss the policy and as written, and reminding them that the much shorter version in this existing contract is a result of contract negotiations and concessions on the union's behalf. This particular process is governed by the prior contract, and to change the policy midstream after the July.
Yeah, I'm not talking about changing your policy at all. I'm talking about how the select board has insight into the process real time.
So when you say insight, you mean knowledge and awareness, for clarity?
Yep. And so, the ability to impact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ability to impact is separate from knowledge and insight. Are you looking for all three, Madam Chair?
I'm actually looking for us to be very active in the decision-making process that we are responsible for, ultimately. We are the ultimate arbiter. We are the ultimate decision-making authority. We have responsibility for this decision when it happens. And I know that it's all based on your professional. I appreciate the process discussion. I appreciate that it's robust. But we ultimately have the responsibility. So how do we interact with that meaningfully before it's just the vote on the promotion?
Well, I mean, I think you begin with knowledge and awareness and understanding, knowing the policy, knowing the metrics, knowing more about how HR structures interviews, knowing about how the process is built. You might find that helpful. If you wanted to be a part of the actual process, that would probably begin with a discussion with the union. That's not something I would be able to unilaterally implement without impact bargaining.
Can I ask a question? Is the screening committee, the HR screening committee, set by the union terms? The makeup of the committee?
The members of the, yes, Madam Chair. The members of the interview committee are set by the policy.
And who are the members then?
I had the neighbor and chief. It was Jessica from HR and Sergeant Van Wall.
Okay. All right. I appreciate all this.
And that's all written out. So what happened was HR governed the interview process of Jessica. Maria worked with me in developing my metric and my scoring methods on the topics outlined in the policy.
Are we able to see the metrics, Chief?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
But they're on paper.
Yeah. That would be helpful as well. I appreciate that. And I very much appreciate this conversation tonight. I know that it's challenging. And one of the things I'm thinking about as we have the conversation is potentially makes sense to, as we're talking about a departmental review and processes and the strengths and gaps analysis kind of thing, it's a question for a professional reviewer potentially to how we might improve. I don't mean your process, I mean the select board process. In terms of both supporting and participating in the promotional and hiring processes. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Chief. Good night.
And now, right on time, the town manager report.
Fire chief hiring process update.
Oh, okay, yes, happy news. Thank you. I apologize for that. Mr. Kamala, do you want to go first? You may have all the highlights.
Yes. The fire chief hiring process is moving forward. As was previously announced, the town did hire a consulting company to help in the process. Since then, the hiring company met together with the town screening committee. The town screening committee includes the town manager, representative from the select board, who is the chair of the select board, representative from the personnel committee, and in this case is the chair of the personnel committee, and the HR director. We also are assisted as part of this committee by a fire chief from the surrounding community. In this case, we have the fire chief from the city of Marlborough. We had our first meeting. At the first meeting, we did agree on a grading of the candidates with a view towards identifying the candidates to be interviewed by the screening committee, understanding again that the process allows the screening committee to identify finalist candidates. Those finalist candidates will be presented to the select board for the final interview. We have identified, I believe, a date for the interviews, and that date is going to be October 3rd or 4th. I know that email
The
flew around.
3rd, I'll be in the Salt Lake City airport doing them.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
Lucky you.
Psyched. Yeah, October.
Yes. Yeah.
October 3rd.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, the process is moving forward. We're now poised to begin the interviews. The goal is to identify candidates that will be candidates who will be recommended for the final round interviews with the select board.
And just for the public's edification, at that point, the final round candidates are public information, but prior to that, the candidates are not, it's not public information who has applied.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, now the town manager's report.
Town manager's report. I did indicate in my report that the most visible discussion point regarding the Main Street Corridor project is the timing of the final paving. I understand there was a construction meeting this morning which was going to cover that topic, but unfortunately I have not connected with Dave to hear what transpired at that meeting. So again, we're looking forward to hearing about when the final paving will be done. PFAS, the contractor has confirmed January as the end date of the project. We are allowing February depending on what happens during the winter.
February?
Yes, of 2024. But the goal is to finish the project in January.
Wow, that's a long time. Okay.
Yeah. And then in terms of the MWRA connection, we are now scheduling a meeting with Southborough to commence or recommence the IMA negotiations. We included in your packet the pilot agreement that we have arrived at with the Bay Path Human Society of Hopkinton regarding the lease of property at 66 Fort Street. You may recall this is a project that dates back to 2017. Town meeting approves and authorizes the select board to negotiate a lease. And then back in 2019, the select board issues an RFP, and then select board approved a lease in 2022. Part of that lease required Bay Path to complete its due diligence. And at the conclusion of that process, we believe that now we can move forward the pilot to the Board of Assessors for final approval. And for the public's information, Bay Path is really poised to move this project forward. Their fundraising has been successful. They are now in the process of identifying the engineering team to finalize their permitting process plans and designs.
So you need a motion or something?
No motion.
For Bay Path, do we need a motion? No.
No motion.
There is one listed.
We have one here.
For pilot.
Questions first?
Yeah, do we have any questions or comments on the report first?
Oh, I stand corrected.
Yeah.
There's a motion to sign. The board did approve the pilot at the previous meeting, but tonight we're asking you to sign the pilot.
Before I move the motion, I wanted to ask.
We need a motion. We need a motion.
Yeah, but we have a couple questions first.
Yes.
One about, Bay Path does wonderful work, so happy to see there's an agreement here. But does it have any financial impact for the town?
Pilot. Yes, there's a financial impact. However, think of a pilot in two ways. There's a pilot where we agree that a nonprofit that provides specific services does so in a manner that adds value to the community.
Outweighs.
Exactly. In that case, we have had a long-standing relationship with Bay Path. They are actually the entity that holds animals, dogs for us, that are picked up by our animal control officer, and that is substantial value for the community. We also have found ways to get Bay Path to assist in other animal hospitality wellness programs that the town has benefited from.
Sure. No, I'm a big fan of Bay Path and the work that they do. I mean, it has tremendous humane value as well as overall our community just putting in the right light what we value and how we operate. So I'm totally, I can see the value.
Yes, and specifically the second component is in negotiating the pilot, we do consult with our other town departments and arrive at some number that the entity pays towards town services. And in this case, I believe we agreed at $2,000 a year. And they've made that first payment.
Thank you. So, Madam Tom.
I just wanted to say, so I know that the Main Street Corridor project has been a big project and has been always, when it's active, very inconvenient. And largely, the town has been incredibly patient, and we appreciate that. And I have noticed and appreciated really consistent support from town staff to sort of manage the issues as they come up. And I very much appreciate that, certainly. And I know that we are close to the finish line, and the finish line has budged a little bit to be completely done. But we are so close, and it's going to be so nice when it's done. And I think that I would have been surprised, honestly, with a project of this size and the times that we went through, if we didn't have a tiny bit of budge in the finish line. I think that town staff is to be commended for the ways that you have really seen this project through, and I'm excited, like everybody else, that it's almost done, and it's going to be really nice. Change is always hard. There have been, there are places and points that people aren't feeling as great about or whatever, but when it's completely done in a package, it's going to be lovely. And I just want to make sure that, I don't know, we take a tiny victory lap for all the people who went before me and really made this project happen and be so close to finish. So now I'll entertain a motion on the pilot.
Madam Chair, I move to sign the pilot agreement between the Town of Hopkinton and Bay Path Humane Society relative to the lease of property at 66 Fruit Street.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. And our favorite motion of the... no, wait. That's not true. Announcements and liaisons. Any liaison reports?
Oh, yes.
Go ahead, Amy.
So the Commission on Disability had their first meeting last night, so that was great to get started. And we talked about information gathering as our first step. So we're going to work on drafting a survey to see what the disability needs are in the community, and then maybe we would have ready to hand out on the table at town meeting in November. And then possibly a forum in January to get input from the public.
Very nice. Mary Jo.
I had a meeting with the assessors earlier tonight with John, and we were talking about the possibility of the legislation that I had spoken of, and he is willing to help with it, and I thank him for that. That's all.
I joined affordable housing last week, and there was some good discussion about recalibrating the contribution of the affordable into the affordable housing fund, and the committee, I think, analyzed it a little bit, but then it was a kind of exercise that they will be going through to see if we can come up with a new formula that's more meaningful with the pricing and the market that we are in.
It's a new formula. Tell me again what the new formula
So
you're
I think,
talking about.
Again, I'm not an expert in this matter, but there is much the developer would contribute with new development.
Okay.
But because our market has been so healthy, there's a difference, a visible difference. So how can we minimize the gap? I think that is in the discussion, and that's where the formula recalibration.
What are you talking about?
That's in determining what's affordable.
What's affordable?
The determination of what's affordable, because when you in some calculations, it's
That's
800,000.
That's set by the state, though.
Yeah.
But I think what you're talking about is the formula that we use in town, local legislation, local bylaw, to encourage developers for a certain number of units in a development, they have to deliver a certain number of units affordable. I think that's what we're talking about.
That's what we're talking about. Now, it does start with state guidelines, but as a town, we do have some levers, and that or not, we'll find out.
Yeah.
That's the, I think, core of the discussion.
Okay.
So more to come, and I couldn't join the entire meeting because we had other meetings at the same time. And the second one was the library committee. That was yesterday, and I wanted to take a minute, or take a moment to thank Susan Porter for her service as the chair. And now we have a new chair, Jessica. Congratulations to her, and the vice chair, Warren. Congratulations to both of them. And the library has a wonderful plan of celebrating the Banned Book Week that's coming up, first week of October. So I'm very proud to see that they have organized such a timely event. It's going on across the nation. And the promotions we have heard them today, that was also discussed. So they're really in the front line of serving our community. Great to see that.
Great. Irfan? Okay. All right.
If I may, just to clarify very quickly, the reference to the developer contribution is actually in the town zoning bylaw.
Yep.
And it's specifically a provision whereby if the developer is not constructing affordable housing, how much do they in lieu contribute to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund?
That's part and parcel of the conversation? Two things, how many equivalent units, or is it just how much?
How much?
It's just how much.
I
Thank you
gotcha.
for clarifying.
Okay, all right, that makes sense to me, the way you explained it. I'm sorry, I was missing that.
Actually, I do have one thing.
Yep.
There's a reading at the library for such, in talking about the experience of the lived experience of immigrants.
Nice.
So that's going to be on Saturday, September 30th.
Wow, I like it. Do you know what time?
It will be at 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock. Thank you for sharing that. Saturday the 30th. Okay, I just wanted to put a plug out there for Family Day this Saturday. Unfortunately, I won't be able to be there. I'm really sad because they were looking for volunteers for the dunk tank. Not really something
It's a lot of fun.
I
I
can.
did that last year. It was.
I don't think it's a good idea.
We did. Norman did that too.
You did? Oh, good for you. But they are looking for volunteers from town boards, departments, or committees or residents. So if people are interested in participating in that great little bit of joy at Family Day, please contact Dorothy Maruska, and it's DMARUSKA@comcast.net. Anyway, I think people really enjoy that feature, and if you're game and have a great sense of humor, it's a great way to contribute.
All you do is get wet.
Yeah.
And climb back up.
And climb back up.
Get wet again.
It's the climbing back up thing I'm not so sure about for me this time. We already talked about the Garden of Hope. I really hope that people are there to support that on Sunday if they're available, and also hope that people feel welcome and supported if they are contributing to the Garden of Hope, and just want to know that they are not alone in this struggle with their community, the communities with them. Let Freedom Read is October 5th from 5 to 7 on the Common. So if you want to participate in joining that, it's from 5 to 7 on the Common. And then the Sustainable Green Committee is having a climate action change drop-in event on October 11th from 6 to 9 at the Senior Center. The Art on the Trail is coming up October 12th. That opens at 6 p.m. on October 12th. So just a lot of really wonderful things happening in the town. Anything else in terms of announcements? So I added a future agenda item suggestion. I was hoping that we could discuss the policy on redaction of public survey comments on October 3rd, if you're able to do that, and the strategic planning framework that you proposed, Shahidul, seems like that makes sense as well. And then also just putting it on the radar that we're going to have the police department, hopefully, actually, I guess not the 3rd. We have to, the 17th. Police department, youth and family services, and the school department, if everybody is available and able to support that, about the overview of the SRO program, including supervision and oversight measures. And then I am kind of hoping maybe that's better for the 17th as well. I'm hoping that we can discuss briefly the organizational review components and process for the police department. Maybe we should leave that on the October 3rd if we're able to do it. And then just looking ahead, the framework that you suggested, Shahidul, for clean water and PFAS, I thought we could put on the 17th. I think we just have to get at least a brief presentation to get the idea rolling. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I couldn't remember, did we still carry forward the cemetery commission rate changes?
We did, but I don't know when they're...
Tommy Pratt?
I haven't talked to anybody. I'm just sort of asking if it makes sense to have it.
In fact, I owe Tom Pratt a call back. He did call me. I owe Tom Pratt a call back. Yeah, he did call me. I'm sure he...
I don't know if he'll be ready on the 17th.
Yeah.
We don't know if he'll be ready on the 17th,
yes.
which is totally fine. That's totally fine. So, but I thought that we would at least introduce the agenda items that have been sort of pending and get the conversation started. Hopefully we can also fully address them wherever applicable. So that's what I'll do going forward is pluck off that list and try and get them scheduled going forward.
I have a question.
Sure.
My question is for Norman, and it is about the downtown project. I know when I worked on big state projects, we had a terrible time with utility companies moving their poles and things. Do we have a schedule for the poles to be removed and the wires to go underground? I know all the tubing, I know everything is there for it, but...
So the transformers.
Yeah, so we get the utilities together to do it.
Yeah, they are presenting the biggest challenge now in terms of when we do the final paving. One, we have the transformer issue. They've told us they will not be able to secure the transformers until next year. And then secondly, we still have 6 or 7 poles that Verizon needs to move off from the right-of-way. I did reach out to our contact at Verizon last week. She's following up on it. We don't have a specific day when they will do that, unless if they reported something else this morning to Dave.
Okay, and just for the, and just, I know it still shows on our packet information, we do not have a meeting tomorrow night. Our next meeting is October 3rd. Anything else?
For the future, could we get an update on the Legacy Farm gas lamps for the next town manager's report? Someone posted a picture online that looked like perhaps they'd been done, the solar lights.
You will ask.
Great. That would be great news. All right.
We need to drive by. Driven by lately.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Awesome. Any opposed? Any